Welcome to this session. As you've seen in the title, has to do with Q&A, and probably if you have enough time, maybe a demo or two. I see that most of you have already completed chapter 2 and in a very impressive fashion. I like this, being able to get through everything. So what we're going to do is just demonstrate the interactive mode and the script mode in terms of displaying information on the screen. Some of those things we've already discussed in the classroom for those who have already who were in the classroom a few days ago. And then the input, how to get the input from the user through the keyboard, and working with the formatting there and being able to convert that input from the string to float or integer, because the print function, which is an inbuilt function in Python, the answer that the user puts in comes in form of a string. And if you try to use it in calculation or any other way outside the string, it's going to give you an error message. So understanding how to convert that input that you get from the user to do math or some other thing with it is very important. So we're gonna hopefully we'll have enough time to get through to that demo. So with that said, let's look at one example. For those who haven't been able to do any kind of programming at all, whether they've installed Python or not. Nathan, Joseph, have you installed Python on your computer?
Yeah, I have it installed.
Okay. All right, so let's look at Python program, and it's well, I have it from my recently added programs here. Once you open it, normally Windows will put them up there so you're able to easily access them. So you're going to have two different types. If you run this one, it's going to be interactive mode. The idle mode is the text editor that allow you to save your work. If I run this one that says Python, whatever I write here is going to execute, and I won't have the opportunity to save it. If I say X equals to 42, and I say print X. Okay.
Are we supposed to be able to see the screen?
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Let me restart this. I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't remember to share it. Let's see. Screen one. Can you see that now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so let me go back and reopen this. And the one I just ran, there's an error message, and that error message pretty much tells you that you have to stay consistent in naming your variables. Something with uppercase and lowercase are not going to be the same thing in Python. If you have uppercase X, is not the same thing as uppercase lowercase x. So if you try to call your variable that you've declared with uppercase with a lowercase, Python will give you an error message. So that consistency is important. So what I was trying to do is something like this. X equals, let's say 32. That's the lowercase x. I say print X. See my result there, 32. In other programs, like older program, maybe Fortran or something, you see something like display X. So the same functions, but they use different languages and syntax to display to do the same thing. In Visual Basic, I believe the built-in function there is pic print, PIC, print, like picture print, and it will do the same thing. So from program to program, how you display is going to vary. If we say something like f name equals to John, L name indicating last name equals to Thompson, and then we say print f name. What do we have? John, print L name. We have Thompson. Let's see if it's possible to print them in one line. Print F name, L name. So it gives us the full name. We have a comma separator. And this is the interactive mode. The only way you can save this is to copy it and paste it on a Word document or text. And then save it as a text file with the Python py extension. If you save it in another way, it's not going to run in Python. So this is the interactive mode. You just you interact with it back and forth until you're done. So the one you're likely to use extensively as a programmer is the idle. Where you run your script mode. First of all, when you open it, it's going to come out like this. But if you want a neat new text, you're going to go to File and say open a new file. You get a new file here. And here, let's say we want to display somebody's personal details, including first name, last name, and the address. And those who are in the classroom and based on the assignment you've been given before, remember to comment generously. I may not be doing all the comments here because of the limited time we have for this, but we want to make sure that you have a main explanation for what the program does, or any subsection have a comment for what it does, and each line, make sure even somebody who is not a programmer can look at the line and tell what the program can do. What that does is somebody takes over from you, they can duplicate that program. And if you write a pseudocode for your program, most likely you've already got the ideas of what is going to go into the comments, because the pseudocodes will provide you with those comment the keywords for the comments. So here we're going to say and for Python, comment normally is preceded with by hashtag. We're going to say this program will take your personal details and display them on the screen. I'm going to say f name equals Paul. You can do it one line at a time, or if you want the whole thing to be one continuous line, you're going to separate it with a colon. Some programs will take comma, but for Python, you have to use semicolon. So last name, we're going to say, let's say Joshua. So here, this space is not really necessary. It's just for the user to visually see it. If you have all this together, it's still going to run. And let's say street equals, let's say 1, 2, 3, ABC street. Let's say city. Let's say Ellensburg. State. Actually, let's see. State is Washington. Zip code 989. Let's use something like 07. The print. Uppercase or lowercase actually. Okay, this function print. Say your details are. Close it with the quote. F name, L name, street, city, state, zip code. Let's see if that runs or if we need to debug anything. In most cases, you always have something to debug. Before you run it, okay, here if it says untitled, you have to save it if you are in the script mode, which is the one you write with a text editor. So we can save it as, let me go to, I can save it to a desktop or my flash drive or any of my folders, and save it here and say this is the personal detail display. Make sure it says Python files here, and once you save it, going to give it that extension right here, .py. And when you save it, you can run it from here. You can select this or just press F5 on your keyboard. And as I noticed, it's giving us an error message there. Let's remove this and see if it makes a difference. Still another error message. Who can tell me what is wrong there?
It looks like your city has turned into what your variable is going to equal.
It's
A
missing
flip-flop.
the quotation point, right, at the end for street.
Okay.
Yeah,
You only got one in the front, nothing in the back.
Excellent, excellent. Glad you noticed that detail there. Let's see if that corrects it. There you go. So these are, it will display that for us. These are the entries we've made. the print function will display on the screen for us. So in your submission for your work, you get this to show what worked. You get the screenshot of this with the actual program displaying whether it works or not. I want to see that. Sometimes it may not work exactly. I still want to see the effort the person made. And then you're gonna also screenshot this and paste on Word document and label it. So all this becomes clear. So in your submission, which is going to be different from this, always have your comment to explain what these lines do. This will display your state and your zip code. So make sure you comment generously in terms of what each one does. Is that clear? I know, Charles, you already submitted
Yes,
the
sir.
stuff, so this will be pretty easy for you to understand. So Nathan, do you have any questions about that?
No, but can you leave it up for a minute?
Sure. You got it, or you still need a few more minutes?
Still need a few more minutes. 1 second.
Okay. And if you have your phone, you can easily take a picture of that. Or make a screenshot of it. That can be quicker. So much of what is in chapter 2 will equip you with the skills to go through this. Once you get through chapter 2, go through all the checkpoints and the algorithm workbench.
So I think I put it in correctly, but it's not showing that the end. Like it's not actually, once I put in the print function, it's not actually showing it.
All right, I'm going to enable it so you can share your screen with me and we can look at what is going on there.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, so you share with us what's going on there. And Charles, you can chime in once you see that, if you notice any missing detail.
Well, it says I can't
Okay.
share while you're sharing.
All right, let me stop sharing so you can. All right. Is that yours or mine? That's yours because
It's mine.
Okay. Let's see what you have.
After the colon, after
You have a
more
space
details
here.
are,
Yeah.
you need to move that comma to the left. Oh, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
The
And close the space here. Close the space in print. You see that?
print.
Yeah.
Oh,
Close
before. Okay, so right there.
Yeah. Okay. And there's your Ellensburg has the closing quotes there.
after zip.
Ellensburg, does it have the closing quote? Because you can't see the, you can
I
actually,
can't
you
see
can,
that.
yeah, you can expand your, you see beside the X, you can click to expand it so we can see everything. Okay, okay, it has it. And before you run it, you can save it. If you run it now without saving it, it will prompt you to save it. You're going to give it a name, save it, and then it will run.
What do you save as?
Either way, the first time, save or save as is okay. The second
Save.
time, if you want to save it with a different name, that's when save as becomes relevant.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It can be your desktop, wherever you can find it quicker. Next time you look for it.
IT 110, correct?
Yes. You already have that folder, unless you want to make a second one.
Oh, I do. You're right. And then I do run.
Yeah, and it's a run. Once you click the run module, and you can press F5, it will do the same thing.
What is that saying? Trace back.
Okay, it's giving you an error message. Drag it to the screen you're sharing so we can see that. F name, what's that? L name. Look at your L name, and the one in print and the one you declared are not the same thing. The variable is not consistent. Can you see that?
Let me
L
see.
name, L name variable, and L name in the print.
Oh, I did. Okay, I see. I spelled that wrong.
Once you do that, you save again and try to run it.
Okay, that worked.
It worked? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And to build on that, let's say a friend of yours say, okay, I have this small business idea I'm going to be running a nonprofit where I am going to be helping people with special needs, and I want to submit a small business proposal. And my costs will include utility for players. They're going to be staying, transportation, grocery, recreation, and a whole lot of other. But let's just take 4 examples to illustrate what the person is looking. So you have this idea and you start interviewing the person so you can get more ideas in terms of what the person is doing. Can everybody see my screen? Or do I need to reshare?
I cannot see your screen.
Yeah, we can't see your screen.
All right. Sure we can. Can you see that now?
No.
What about now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me expand this so it's bigger. Let's try this one. All right, so let's do save as and say personal and business idea. Let's call it biz idea detail display. So now you're going to get the input for the person's name, but then additional ideas we need to add. We're going to say comma And he said the cost, estimated cost for utility the person will be running in the facility will be about 18,000 and some change. Let's say 18023.67, and I'm putting this multiple decimal places so you can see how float and the integer numbers, will work differently once we get them to behave differently. So you make sure you go through chapter 2 thoroughly to make sure you understand these. So the utility cost of utility is that we don't have the dollar designation there. We're gonna look into that later. So notice that when we are declaring numerical function, we're not putting it in quotes. String literals for words, you're going to see that we put them in quotes. We have numbers that we represent with floats or integer. We don't put them in quotes. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we don't display them as strings here. We are making it's assuming the input here is float. By having that decimal, yeah, we already have it as a floating number designation. And then we're going to say grocery transportation cost will be $19 or 31, 19,000. Let's say your program might have it somewhere it displays fractions of a penny or something. Let's say that grocery for this individual, for this the group, let's estimate that to be 201.80.7857. And let's say that recreation, the person takes them to the park or movie or some other places. Let's put that on usually high number. Not realistic, but at least it serves our purpose for the demonstration. So how many items we have there? 4. Let's just, yeah, that should do. How do we calculate the total from those numbers? I'm going to call the sum of those things. I'm going to give it a variable month cost. Notice that in Python, you can use that as a common case, or you can use month cost or underscore cost, or any other variable you want to give it, as long as you don't start with number or violate any of the rules that they gave in one of the pages in chapter 2. Make sure you go through those rules so when you get an error that has to do with naming your variable, you understand what it is and how to correct it. So month cost, we are going to say, what should we put there? Let me copy and paste them so typing doesn't result to any kind of error. Plus
transportation, grocery, and your last one that I can't read, recreation.
Recreation, okay. All right, so this is our variable now. And what we can do is to display it for this individual. And and then display additional information for the business. And in order to create space between the lines, we can put in space indicator in the print function. Once we do this, double quote with nothing between them, it will create a space between the first one and the next line, and subsequently, if you have that, it's going to keep creating space to space out between your lines of display. And then the personal details are, and this time we can take this one. Come over here and say print. We can type this over or copy and paste it so there will be space between it and the next thing that comes up. And we can say something like, your cost for this month is, let's put a $sign there. Your cost for this month is $sign and put comma. If we put this here, it will work, but we already have it added up, so we can pick that one up, the month cost. But realize that if you put this here, it will still print it. Let's try that and see what happens. So we're gonna press S, Control S on the keyboard to save it, or just save it here, and then run it, see what happens. Do you see the lines? They're no longer together. There's a space between them. Your details are, this is your name and address, and your cost for the month is that, with this floating number. And the $sign right there. Notice the arrangement in the $sign. It doesn't look pretty there. Let's space it out here and then run it again. Now it has the space for the $sign. We're still going to tweak it to make it look better. So the another thing we can say here is that actually, let me leave this out. Say let's say you can also display this as an integer. This is just fun. It's not part of the project. You can also put this up as a comment, but I'm putting it as something that the program will display. Your comment will not display, but this one, the user will run the program and see it. We can also display this as an integer to get rid of the decimal place, like this, like so. Get rid of the decimal place where you say print. Somebody give me an idea. So this will round your month cost to, let's put that $, there again.
You want me to do it?
Notice the comma separation. Yeah, you can. Well, you're not able to input on my screen, but you can give me an idea of what comes next.
You're gonna put oh, wait a second.
We want it to display integer.
Yeah, you're going to put a left-handed quotation mark or oh,
Pretty
see,
close.
okay. You're gonna
Yeah.
put integer,
Exactly.
and then
Awesome.
the number.
Yes, we said int.
Oh, you,
Yeah, integer.
I don't know
So
enough to be
we-
answering stuff.
yeah,
I
we
got a lot
can-
to learn.
Yeah, we can use this, or we can just use we've already narrowed it down to this variable, which is month cost. So we're going to say month cost. So once you have this is no longer necessary. This is no longer necessary to keep displaying it. This makes it shorter, but we just put it in there to show that it can actually work by itself if you haven't done the math yet. So this integer month cost, you put int. If you want it to display the way it is, you put in float, and they will not remove the decimal places. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you do that, make sure you have enough parentheses to close. The month cost is in parentheses, then there should be another one on the left to complement this one. So remember what the purpose here is, say to display this as an integer to get rid of the decimal places. In the previous display, we had it with these decimal places displaying. So let's run that and see if that works. We have an error message. Can everybody see where it is? It will always point to you where the error message, even where you don't have this.
Yeah, you got too many quotations after this.
Notice what happens. It shows you the line where it is. Even if it doesn't give you this flag, you can always use the line. And to visualize the line, what do? You can go to options and say, show line numbers. Does everybody see that? And it tells you in line 11,
Yeah.
look for your error in line 11. That means we have unnecessary additional quote that we don't need. So we're going to remove it and save, and then run that program. And voila, here you are. So your personal details are. Look at how the spaces are showing up in the program. So it looks neater. Then your cost is this. And then you can display with that integer. Notice when the integer version of it is displayed, it's no longer a floating point number. The decimal places have disappeared. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Do you need to take any note before we proceed to the next thing?
Yeah, 1 second, I messed up on mine.
Actually, we're still going to be on the same screen, so that's not. All right, let's say this one. Let's add something else there on the same program to expand it. Let's say something like, then again, what I'm putting in here is going to be, you can put that as a comment, but here I want the user to also see that, but they normally should go into the comment. So you can also display with 2 decimal places and use the dollar format. So our dollar format is going to be more official now, and in a neat fashion that doesn't create unnecessary space. And for more on that, say see page 73 of your book. And how does that work? Let's put in our space again, and then come in here to set F to show that you're going to be modifying the format. You have F, and there you have the single quote there to start and say this will make your cost this month. And then your dollar sign comes in here. And you start with these braces. When you look at around the same area of that page in your book, it will tell you more about the placeholder and the position of the variant and where you see going to be putting these formatting items, whether you're talking about comma separator or dollar sign or decimal places. So normally on the left, starting with that brace, you have your variable in each position, and that variable is the month cost. And then you have colon. We want a comma separator for that bigger amount, so it's easier to read. And then, so we put in comma separator to tell it what we want it to do. And for decimal places, we do .2f, which means format with 2 decimal places. And then we close the braces and then close the parentheses. Let's see if that gives us our answer if we need to debug anything there. Let's see, I need to close this. Let's press F5. No. Did everybody notice what? Did you notice what happened there? And why did that error show up? This is why this should go, that should go, and in place of it, this, excuse me, that, because we started with a single one and we need to end it with a single one. When you start your formatting, you begin to see the change there. Start with formatting, and then you have your comment, your statement that will introduce the person to the information the person will see. And then your variable, the placeholder for the variable, and then you have semicolon, and then whatever format you're looking for. If it's percentage, you put it in there, it displays in percentage. Let's see if that works this time. I'm going to press Control S to save and press F5 to run it. Is it different now? Notice our comma separator. It's a comma here. Notice the comma now separates it. And we say 2 decimal places. Look at the 2 decimal places. It's no longer 3 or 4.
I got an error.
You got an error?
Yeah.
All right, let's look at your screen and let's see how much time do we have. Let's see if we can help you figure it out.
On the cost.
Are you able to share your screen?
Oh, I think I found it. 1 second. Let me see if that fixes it. Yeah, I fixed it. I had a space in a wrong spot.
Okay. Did it run?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right. All right, let's move on to the next thing. So instead of deleting the whole thing, we can modify it and give it a different name and say save as. That guarantees that the previous one is not displayed. let's say with prompt, the keyboard prompt, where you prompt the user to make an input. So this program will prompt you to input your personal and proposal details and display them on the screen. So you already have your names there, you already have the numbers. Actually, you don't need the numbers anymore because the user will be determining the number. So we're going to modify those ones to prompt the user to make the input. Okay. So say in this case, you will make keyboard input. So how do we prompt somebody to make an input to a keyboard? For the first name, let me move all of these down. For the first name, instead of defining it with this string literal, what do we do there?
Turn it into a variable.
Yeah, that's a variable there. So we're going to say what? Input. And this is the command we're giving to the user. Input your first name and hit enter. You can say input your first name. This will take your first name input. All right, so that's for first name. And I think we need our space there as well. No, let's see. Say last. And on and on and on. I'm not going to keep doing the comments, at least you get the idea. And that this will be the prompt and display for the first name and the last name. And what's the next thing? Street, right? So notice we are in a previous program, we fed the variable what it needs to display. Now it's hands off. We write the program and then we prompt the user to actually give us the value rather than us feeding the program these values to display. So now it falls on the user to do that. Let's see. Input.
Should it be L name instead of F name?
That's our name. Thank you for catching that before we get to running the program. Your street. Enter your street. Let's just forget this for now. And the next one is what? City. So notice how I'm saving time instead of typing over and over, and I'm copying and just editing to make it faster. After city, what we have, state. What will be the next? Zip code. Is that correct? Zip code.
That is correct.
All right, it says yes, zip code. Enter your zip code and hit enter. And next one. Enter utility amount, utility estimate, and hit enter. That'll be, let's see. What is the next one?
Transportation.
Transportation. Excellent. Transportation. Let me copy that and put it in there. And that transportation estimate. Actually, let me make multiple copies and then edit them. All right. For next one, we have grocery, right?
Correct.
Grocery. Oops. What is the next one? Recreation. Is that correct? Recreation. All right, so we come to our distance. So these are no longer necessary, but the variable month cost, which will add up the input we get from the person, still remains relevant. Okay. They will just say your cost this month is da 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 da. So we already know this can work the way it is, but we no longer need to display, but at least we know it works. So let's just go ahead and stick with the variable for the total cost that we've already created. So this can display it as month cost, as initially with the floating point, so the integer is not affected. The integer display is not there. It will still look at it here and display the integer with the integer format, and it will still do the same thing with the decimal places and comma separator. It will still do that, even when it gets it from the user. So let's run it to see if there's something to debug, or if we need to, if we're successful getting it right the first time. I'm going to save it and press F5. It looks like it's going to run. Let's say the name of this small business aspirant is Samuel. Let's say Bryson. Street address, the 123 ABC Street. The city, let's say Yakima. Zip code, let's just use 98908. Yeah, we made a mistake there. The state should be, let's just start afresh, because we have zip code in place of the state. So let's run it again. It says Samuel. Let's change his last name to Olson. Street, 123 ABC Street. By the way, if we left it the way it is, it will still display the state as a number, because we haven't, there's a way you can program it to reject the wrong format, but we haven't got to that yet. I don't think it's covered in the scope of this introductory course, but there's a way to make it reject format, like formatting your zip code. So when you exceed 5 numbers, it will reject that, but we don't have that. The city, let's say again, Yakima. State, here we let you put in 2 letters or the entire name. Washington, and the zip code, let's say 98908. Let's say utility estimate, let's say 125.324.031. Let's say our calculator is ultra precise. And transportation 698.4.365. Grocery, let's say 2589.33. And recreation, let's say something like that, and hit enter. Okay, we got an error message somewhere. Who can tell me where it is and what it is? Let me move this by the side to see if you can spot it. Look at the red display here. It will give you a pointer to where the error is. Okay, remember what I said earlier, your input function by default is string. It takes string format. So we have to tell it to do something different. And we forgot that. So in that case, what do we do with the precise numbers here that has to do with the estimate? What do we do there? Let's start with utility. What do we do? You're going to tell it that we want float. You can tell it to do integer, but that would be ultra precise. So we don't know how the user will be. You might be making entries that involve the actual number plus some change, some pennies. So you want to allow that flexibility there. So we say float input is there. If you do integer input, it will restrict the person to 0 decimal places. So there will be no decimal place. So we're going to say float. And then we cover that with the closing parenthesis. Closing parenthesis. Over here, we say again, float, open, close. So remember, when you have 2 here, you should ensure that you have 2 to close it up. All right. Do you think that will fix the problem, or do you think we'll encounter another thing that we can debug? If you look
Hopefully
at
it fixes the problem.
all right, hopefully. Let's save and run it. F5. All right, let's say Samuel. Let's say Olson. The 1, 2, 3 Yakima Avenue this time. Let's say Yakima. Your state, Washington, 98908. Utility estimate, let's just punch in a random number. Transportation. Grocery. Our spelling for grocery there is weird. We're going to go back and correct it, but at this time it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the function of the program. 19825.369. And recreation, 984 point. All right, looks like that's a success. This is the person's personal detail with the address, the cost for the month as a floating point without removing the decimal places in there. You tell the person you can display it as an integer. That means the rest of this is gone. We have a whole number. You display with these 2 decimal places, which means you're going to record this and then eliminate this last year, and you have your 1 point. You will correct it and bring it to the nearest number, 32 decimal places. So 0.1395 becomes 0.14. And that's because we've told it here to display it as a floating number with this format, 2 decimal places and a comma separator, because we have some comma separator. Look at the amount. Look at the difference between here and there. Now we got the thousands separation. Any questions?
I have a lot to learn, so bear with me.
Yeah, I understand, this is which is why we're doing it. So once you go back and start reading stuff and doing some practice quizzes and algorithm with Workbench, it will make more sense when you have this additional way of looking at it. So that's why those who are not in class and don't participate in the online session either, will end up having a lot of difficulty, because this help, give them diverse ways of internalizing the knowledge. Any questions? We need to leave it for a little bit for anybody taking notes. So. All right.
So if I followed that, and I put in all the names and all the numbers, when I hit enter, it defaulted back to the Paul Joshua thing.
let's see your screen. You might not have modified it to
Okay.
grab an input from the user. Let's see your screen to see what's going on. If it defaults to that, that means it's grabbing the one that you fed to it rather than the one from the user, the user who is going to be making the input.
You need to see the. You probably need to see the other one. See. Share that one.
You got it? I can't see your screen.
It says it's loading.
Okay. Maybe some network issue going on.
I can stop it and try again. Let me see. Share screen. Share. Yeah, it just says your screen share is loading.
I might be having some network issue. Let me stop mine to see if yours shows up. Okay, it looks like I can see yours now. On the left. Can you see that, Charles?
I think that's yours still, isn't it?
It should be mine.
Yeah,
typing?
that's his. That's his.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, delete that line. You see the line after the space, you see F name equals to Paul, L name. So that overrides what the user is doing.
Oh,
Because,
so this
yeah,
this
runs
right
what
here.
shows up first. Hold on. Yeah, don't delete the month cost where you have the variable.
Just
Add the
delete
total. Yeah, that entire line. That's what is
that entire line.
sabotaging the rest of what is below it. Delete that because the person will be making the input, not the default assigned values. If you delete that, you can save it. And then run, you can press F5 or just go to run and run module. Any luck?
I think I have to re-put everything, or can I copy and paste the old one?
No,
I have to
what
redo it.
I see on the screen here should be. What do you see?
No, it wants me to go through and put like first name and all, last name and all that stuff
Oh,
again.
okay. Yeah, it will prompt you to do that. That's okay. And we can schedule a meeting to discuss. Any other questions? Anything that we need to clarify?
No, I
No,
think I'm
sir.
good.
All right. If not, that's it. Thanks for participating. I see you guys in class for those who will be showing up, and if not, be another online section. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
See you Monday. Thanks.
See you. Bye.